Hello, everybody. Thank you for your interest in the Watermark Interim Executive Practice. I'm Caroline McCauliffe, a Senior Partner here at Watermark, and we'd like to take you through a quick introduction of Watermark Search and our Interim Executive Practice, our process, how it works, what makes for a great interim executive, and the superpowers and traits that make for a great executive, so that you can have a good idea as to whether this is something that you'd like to pursue. So first up, we are Watermark Search. We have been around in the local Australian market for over 40 years. We conduct fully retained executive search across public and private sectors and the for-purpose sector. Over those 40 years, we've undertaken a breadth of search. And then around 11 years ago, I was brought in with a partner to form the Interim Executive Practice, which was a growing concept of work at the time in Australia, but quite early days. Watermark Search now has the largest dedicated interim executive practice in Australia, being established, as I said, in 2009. In fact, we've grown more. We did have 4 specialised partners as per this slide, but actually we've just brought on a 5th partner to focus solely on meeting the requirements of those shorter term executive placements. The 5 of us are spread geographically in Melbourne and Sydney, and we do conduct assignments across the whole of Australia, including regional areas as well. So we execute over 200 interim assignments a year, and that is across both the private sector, public sector, government, and our for-purpose sector. And we cross every sector. The interim service is required across the board. Of course, there are hot areas and growing sector needs, especially post-pandemic. There has been a rise, for example, in the area of higher education and health and government work, but equally we are getting an awful lot of work across the private sector in startup and scale-up type businesses, as well as our for-purpose sector, which is always in need of great interim executives. So look, some stats. We've appointed, one CEO every 4 weeks for over 40 years. We've got longevity in this market, and our network is deep and broad. Our interim business solves 4 client problems a week, so we're very happy about that stat, and that's growing. And 43% of our successful candidates over the past 3 years are either gender or culturally diverse, so we're very proud of that number. So, overall, we've placed about 5,000 executives over 40 years in the market. So, and it's a growing sector too. So in terms of interim as compared to search, our interim business has grown 5-fold in the time that we've been around, and continues to grow. And so, that accounts for about 50% of our entire business. So you can see there from the stats that the growth of interim is definitely heading in one direction, and we'll talk a little bit now about why that's happening. So the growth of interim across history, back in the day, 40 odd years ago in Europe, this concept was emerged and developed, and it has since grown significantly, particularly in the UK market, where it's seen as a profession in its own right and with its own association and so on. So when it reached our shores there, as I said, back post GFC, there was a spike in need for interim executives to fill short-term caretaker gaps and bring expertise in short to medium term. As you can see, over the years, the organizational structures of companies have somewhat changed from that pyramid to more of a rocket shape, very lean type of organizational structure, and therefore and then there's been a global trend for contingent workforce anyway, with the rise of the gig economy and the way that people want to work. And the demographics have changed also. We are now have an aging workforce across the world. And so what was the baby boomers and now the X-Gen are now reaching that time in life where potentially we used to retire, but we don't retire anymore. And so there's this overflow, or I suppose, or additional supply of executive assistants that we can now deploy in that gig way, in that more contingent way. And because of the lean structures that are in place, we kind of have, in that visual there, you can see that contingent workers have become the boosters to augment a company's workforce and structure. And so it's all come together at a time and place where the planets have aligned, basically, for supply and demand for the interim executive. That's the history. Now, what's happening today in the growth of interim today is, and I suppose we can talk about post-pandemic really being, I believe we've had another step in our evolution towards the growth of interim, because what happened there is, and the future of work, we talk about it all the time, but the future of work's now. And so the challenges that we are now experiencing in the local market, and I think probably around the world, is this war for talent that has emerged. And that is a very real issue for organisations, and it in fact will be the key issue for organisations going forward, is grappling with this war for talent. And the Great Resignation is another theme that we identified in this year's annual survey of the Australian interim market, which we've been doing for 12 years now. But that very much is a real phenomenon as well. People are voting with their feet and wanting to work differently. And they are joining our ranks too. If you're executive level, you're going to think about perhaps a more portfolio career or approach to your career. And so you're actually thinking more about flexibility, but also you want quality work, and you want to be able to actually own your own, I suppose, career choices, and offer your expertise, but on a more flexible basis on your terms. So that's why we've had this influx of executives sitting on our bench, available to work now, and we're able to offer that expertise to organisations, because what they're finding is longer and longer gaps. So we're getting calls to fill gaps at the executive level, because the search is taking much longer these days with the war for talent. And then you're getting people who are being counter-offered at the 11th hour in those searches, and then we have to start all over again. And we're talking months here, not weeks. So you can't afford these days to not have a leader in place, a C-suite leader in place, to wrap your arms around a team who are desperately in need and who are also being aggressively headhunted too. So that's, we're getting calls for people to fill that gap very credibly, and we have the quality of people available now to do that. People are also taking extended leave. Suddenly the doors are open, the world is open again, and people want to get over to the other side of the world to see their families, so they are requesting extended leave. They're also very tired and fatigued post the pandemic. We thought we were coming out of it there at one point, but no, we did go back into another lockdown situation. So exhaustion and fatigue is definitely a real thing. And so what we're able to provide is executives who can step in and allow your people, your great people who you want to retain, to take some extra leave and get well and come back fully energized to take their roles. So we're backfilling their roles. Succession planning, with all good faith, has come apart somewhat because of these movements in the structure. And so we are often being called to for succession planning purposes, because we just don't have the talent currently in place currently to undertake succession plans or step up. People aren't ready perhaps to step up into those roles where there's a gap. Employee value proposition has become top of agenda for organisations to ensure that they are attracting and retaining their great people. And they're having to think very clearly about, well, what is it that the people want now, and how can we set a pathway and make it in a very attractive place to come work. It's very competitive out there at the moment. So again, whilst they're grappling with that, we're able to provide interim expertise to fill gaps while we look at all of these things that need to be doing for the long term. So we are the alternative workforce. We've coined that phrase. I think that we have always been the crisis management solution, but we are quickly becoming a more everyday solution as we build different hiring models and different business operating models. And the way that work gets done is changing massively. So the interim executive, it has become, I believe, a more broader solution as we work forward into the workforce of the future. So that gives you a little bit of a flavour for who we are, what we do, and what's given rise to this growth in the interim sector. And my colleagues now are going to talk to you about what makes for a great interim executive, what are the traits that we're looking for, and what you should be trying to articulate to us so that we understand exactly where you can add the most value. And we look forward to working with you ongoing. If just a quick one, The Rise of the Interim Executive is a great resource for you. It's the book that Jacinta, my partner, and I have pulled together. And we'd love, if you're interested, it's a very practical guidebook about the Australian market, and again, the rise and how to navigate this new way of working. So please, if you're interested in that, please do look that up at theinterimexecutive.com.au. Thank you.
Hi everybody, my name's Alex Brown. I'm an associate partner here at Watermark. I'm based in Sydney, and I'm here today to talk to you about what makes a good interim executive or portfolio professional. So the first thing that I would say is really important is to be immediately available for work. When clients come to us with opportunities, they come to us expecting a turnaround of within 5 to 10 business days. So you need to be immediately available for interviews and also to start an assignment should you be the selected candidate. The next thing I would say is that you need to be comfortable with managing flexible work patterns. So it may be that over the course of a year, you get 6 to 9 months worth of work. It may be that you get 3 or 4 months. It may be that you get 11 or 12, or your contract gets extended. But you need to be able to manage and be comfortable with flexible revenue streams and flexible work patterns, and be able to be resilient when you are not working, and manage that downtime appropriately for you. The other thing that falls into that resilience bucket, I guess, is also, you know, there will be occasions when you're not the selected candidate, so you need to be able to cope with that rejection. So resilience is critical to being a successful interim. The third thing I would say is really important is being able to articulate your offering. So have real clarity of offering. My colleague Lisa is going to talk about what we define as your superpowers in more depth in a minute. But you really do need to be able to articulate very clearly what it is that you bring to the table and why somebody should put their hand in their pocket to pay for your skills over A, B, C, and D, who may be on the shortlist with you. It's really, really important to be successful that you can evidence your skills. So you need to be able to demonstrate proof of your delivery capability, whether that is program delivery, whether that's managing a transition or an investment or a divestment or whatever it may be. without evidence that you can successfully be parachuted into this opportunity and deliver a comprehensive outcome for the client, you're probably not going to be selected for the role. So it's very important when you go into an interview and that you know that you can deliver and that you can articulate that and evidence that. Good interims almost goes without saying, but really strong interims have solid stakeholder management skills and influencing skills. You're being parachuted into a problem, whatever that problem is, and you need to be able to assimilate that really, really quickly, bring people along on the journey, and manage the stakeholders both up and down and bring everyone together to deliver that outcome. So it's influencing people that don't report into you is a really strong, requirement for, or it's really important that you have that to be a successful interim executive. Another thing that we always talk to our candidates about is making sure that you remain relevant. So keeping yourself abreast of industry changes, new technologies, keep educated, make sure that you are across what's going on. And if you're not across what's going on in the environment that we might put you in, you need to learn it very quickly before you go for the interview. And then finally, I would say it's important to note, people often ask us what's the difference between a management consultant and an interim executive. And an interim executive, our answer would be that an interim executive can do everything that a management consultant can do, but they also have the accountability for the execution, implementation, and outcome, which a management consultant doesn't. So therefore, as an interim, you have a wider set of responsibilities, and it's really important to keep that in mind to be successful when you deliver a program of work. I hope that's helpful. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Lisa McAuliffe and I'm a partner in our interim practice here in Sydney. And today I'd like to talk to you about what you can do, how best to present yourself when you're looking for interim roles and how you can work with us. So the first thing I would say is to check the interim checklist that you would have been sent, which is a great tool to sort of sit back and reflect as to whether, interim executive is right for you. We tend to have two groups of people now. So we have the people that are purely looking at a portfolio career. So interim executives who, as per the checklist, are perhaps at that stage of life. If they have families, they've flown the nest, mortgages are paid off, and they can take the highs and the lows in terms of how often they work. They might want to do a bit of board work. They might want to do some voluntary work. We also have another group of people coming through who are looking at both. So both interim and both permanent opportunities, but it's more about the piece of work. And of course, if you're in that position, then you may need to work more frequently. You may be more driven by, the frequency of work, salaries, and what have you. So think about where you sit and whether you're going to be able to work in this way and really get out there and network yourself as well to find these pieces of work. We're a small part of it. It's so important that you're on our radar, but it's like all roles that you would have come across throughout your career. Network plays a key part in you finding these opportunities. So it's very important for you to continue with your network and keep that very active. So it's really important to come prepared with your superpowers. So your superpowers are what makes you unique and what separates you from your competition. So that is all around your depth of expertise. Now, when an interim assignment comes up, we're not necessarily looking for broad experience. It's great that you may have that in your background. But what we really want to know and what a client's looking for is where that depth of knowledge lies and what you're known for as such, what you can come in and do and replicate from previous roles that you've had. And as Alex have alluded to before, there's always a problem to be fixed. There's a challenge, there's a piece of work to be kick-started. And in an interim capacity, a client wants to bring in somebody who's got proven experience there, and you need to be able to articulate that. So to do that, you need to look back at your functional experience, you need to look at your sector experience, and you need to think about, well, why would somebody pick up the phone and call you? What is it that you can bring to the table that sets you aside from someone else? And you may want to reach out to your peers who can give you feedback on those areas where you've got that expertise. But it's really important that that is consistent messaging. So really, we want to walk away knowing what it is that you bring to the table, what it is we can pick up the phone and call you for, and nobody wants to die wondering, basically. Talking about your superpowers, that really is your value proposition and what it is that you bring to the table. But another suggestion would be perhaps to have that in writing. So you have your CV, which again has that consistency with LinkedIn, it's consistent with what you're telling the market, but perhaps you can think about writing a value proposition, which we have another slide here that can take you through some points there. A value proposition really looks at those key areas of expertise, those areas that you're keen to work in. Now, maybe that could be around M&A, maybe it's around divestment, maybe it's around system implementation. Could it be crisis comms? I mean, a variety of things depending on what functional area you're working in. But I would always suggest that you think about your target audience. So think about organizations that you'd like to work for, potentially sectors that you'd like to work for, and think about, well, what are their pain points now and how can I address those? So what it is that I've done in my past, what it is that I can offer that I'm the solution to your problem. And really a value proposition, it can be, you know, a horizontal A4 piece of paper, 4 or 5 columns, heading up by these key areas of expertise, really addressing them to the market, to your target audience, and potentially then just having an achievement again at the end of each column. I think the messaging is really around being clear about what it is you bring to the table, be concise, articulate those key skills. Clients want to know that you're a knowledge expert in certain areas. And once you've done that, honestly, reaching out to the market is going to help and assist you picking up pieces of consulting or interim work. So hopefully these snapshots are going to help you determine whether interim executive is for you or not. We're here to help and assist where we can. Many thanks.